Hi everyone, welcome to DIY with Nancy. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to make one of my favorite cake combinations, and that is my vanilla custard cake recipe. This cake is so moist with the custard on top. Absolutely a delightful cake, and I hope you stay with me to watch how to make it step by step. To make the vanilla custard cake, you first want to start off by making the custard. I have here 1.5 cups of milk. I'm placing it in a small saucepan. Once I have the milk in the saucepan, I'm going to place the heat on a low heat and let it come to a boil. Now, while I'm waiting for the milk to come to a boil, in a separate bowl, I'm going to add 2 egg yolks. Place that into the bowl. And to the eggs, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. Stir together the egg yolks and the sugar until it's well combined. Once I have the sugar and egg yolks well combined, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. So I'm going to place that into a sifter and sift it into the egg and sugar mixture. Once I have the cornstarch sifted into the egg mixture, I will end up with a thick paste. I will continue stirring it until it's all well combined. Now the milk is coming to a boil. You can see it starts frothing at the top. At that point, turn off the heat. For the next step, I'm going to gradually add the boiled milk into my egg mixture. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to continue stirring. And you'll see that I'm adding a little bit at a time just because I don't want the eggs to cook. So I'm going to pour the milk, keep stirring, and gradually add the milk until all my milk is incorporated into the egg mixture. For the next step, once you've combined your egg and milk mixture, you're going to pour it back into the saucepan. And once you have it in the saucepan, you're going to place your heat on a low to medium heat and continue stirring until you form your custard. Once the custard starts thickening, continue stirring, and now we're going to add the last ingredient. At this point, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. Now I'm going to continue stirring the butter into the custard until it's completely melted and incorporated into the custard. I have the stove on very low heat. I've stirred the butter in the custard for about 10 seconds and the custard is ready. At this point, you turn off your stove. And once your custard is formed, you want to place it into a separate bowl to let it cool. Next, you want to place a piece of plastic wrap on top of the custard to avoid it forming a thick layer on the top of the custard. Now I'm going to set aside the custard to let it cool and move on to the next step. Now let's move on to making our vanilla cake. I'm going to start off by sifting the dry ingredients. I'm going to start off with 1 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour. Next, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Place that in there. Next, I'm adding a pinch of salt. And to that, I'm going to add 9 grams of vanilla sugar. And these packages come packages of 2. I only need 1 package, which has 9 grams. Now that I have all my dry ingredients, I'm going to sift it onto the parchment paper. I have all the dry ingredients sifted. I'm going to set it aside and move on to the next step. For the next step, I'll be using my stand mixer to mix together the balance of the ingredients. I'm going to start off with 1 egg. To that, I'm going to add 3/4 cups of granulated sugar. Place your mixer on high speed and let it mix for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes of mixing, and while the mixer's still going, you want to add half a cup of melted butter, and I'm using unsalted butter. Here I have 3/4 cups of plain yogurt, and I also have mixed in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, which I've placed in the yogurt mixed together earlier and let it sit for about 20 minutes. Now add that into the batter and let it continue mixing for an additional minute. After 1 minute of mixing, I'm going to now add the dry ingredients. I've turned on the mixer to a low speed and I'm gradually adding the dry ingredients that I've sifted earlier. Now that I've added the dry ingredients, I'm going to turn the mixer onto a high speed, let it mix for 1 more minute, at which point we'll have a nice fluffy vanilla cake batter. Okay, the cake batter is ready. For the next step, I have a 9-inch round springform pan with a latch, which is easy for me to remove the cake. Here I have 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter at room temperature, and all I'm simply going to do is place the butter onto the springform pan using a pastry brush. I'm going to make sure that the whole pan is buttered, including the bottom and the edges, just as I'm doing here. Next, I have here 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour. I'm going to use a sifter to sift in the flour into the pan and ensure that it's completely coated with flour. Once you have your cake pan completely coated with butter and flour, you are now ready to place the batter into the cake pan. Now we're ready for the last and final step. Next, here is the custard that is now completely cooled, and I'm going to fill the piping bag with the custard. Now all there's left to do is to pipe the custard right on the batter, and I'm simply going to pipe the lines of custard on the batter. I call this the XOX design. My vanilla cake is now ready to go into the oven. I have the oven preheated at 350 degrees and I'm going to bake it for 40 to 45 minutes. My vanilla custard cake is out of the oven. I've let it sit and cool for about 15 minutes and I want to show you how delicious and moist this vanilla custard cake really is. Here's a perfect slice of the vanilla custard cake. It's light, fluffy, moist, and absolutely delicious. You get a little bit of vanilla cake with some custard, and it absolutely melts in your mouth. Now here's a perfect slice of my vanilla custard cake recipe. This cake is so delicious. You can add some confectioner sugar on top. You can drizzle that on top, or you can even add, if you have a little bit of the extra custard, put it on top. It's delicious. And I hope you all enjoyed this recipe. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Take care.